In this video, I'm gonna take you through my step-by-step process I use to create this insane Playboy Cardi visualizer. I'm gonna take you through my whole workflow from getting the images off Google to compositing them in Photoshop and then bringing it into After Effects and turning it into an amazing 3D scene. I'm gonna show you all the effects that I use in After Effects to blend it even further, and basically all the sauce that I know on how to create the best possible visualizer. So you're gonna wanna watch this video from start to finish because there's tips in each step that's gonna increase the quality of your visualizer dramatically. Before we get into the video though, I do wanna let you know about my amazing editing packs, presets, and plugins. More in specifically, Shake Sauce 2 is my new After Effects plugin that just came out. It's by far the easiest and most fun way to apply Shake in After Effects. I'll have it linked down below as well as all my other editing packs, and I'll even toss in a 7-day free trial on Shake Sauce 2. That way you can try it out 100% risk-free. If you don't absolutely love it, you can cancel at any time, but that's enough talking. Drop a like on the video and let's get into this full breakdown. So I'm gonna take you through my full process from beginning to end. So it's gonna be a rather long video. So just sit back, full screen the video, take down some notes because there's gonna be a lot of stuff you learn throughout the process. First off, one of the most important things is getting high quality images. So what I do to go find high quality images is use google.com. It's a great search engine. I'm sure everyone knows about it, but there's some things you can do inside of google.com that can get you the highest quality images without having to, search forever. So one of the things that's super important is, obviously we're creating a visualizer for Playboy Cardi. So I typed in Cardi, but then going to tools here will expose this bar, and you're gonna wanna change the image size to large. So now all of these images, as you can see here, are higher resolution. I really like this one, and this is the image that we're gonna go for. You can see it's 3500 by 2700 pixels. So it's really, really high quality. And all I do is just copy the image and then go into Photoshop and paste it. And as you can see, this is a 1920 by 1080 composition. And you can see how high quality this image actually is. And to get started, I think because this background's so simple, I'm going to just expand it using generative fill. So what we're gonna do first of all is just select our subject, and you can see it did a pretty good job. For the sake of the tutorial, I'll just go ahead and change a few things just to show you. So if you go to this quick selection tool, you can hold Alt and that will have a minus sign on your key. And then you can kind of go through and remove the areas. And then if you release Alt, you can see it'll have a plus button. So plus means add, minus means subtract. So we're just gonna go through and tweak a few of these different spots. And if you use the bracket keys on your keyboard, it's right next to P. You can go bigger and smaller size. So we can go ahead and hold subtract and add that here. You can spend as much time or as little time as you want on this. It does look better if you go through and do a really good job. So we'll get a few of these little hair areas to kind of have a little bit more transparency when we go ahead and actually animate everything. But you can see just going through, making sure we do a pretty good job. And you just want to get all of the areas and do a good job, especially if it's your main subject. Spending a little extra time will make your visualizer go a long way. For the sake of the tutorial, I think this is plenty good. If I was making my own visualizer for a client or something, I would spend a lot more time here, maybe even using the pen tool, but this should be good. I'm gonna click Control J on my keyboard or Command J on Mac. Now you can see we have Playboy Cardi masked out, looking pretty good. And if you wanted to just see my workflow of using the pen tool, I can show you that real quick because I think it is an important skill set to have. So what you do is just use the pen tool and then kind of just mask out your subject. You can click and drag to bend. And this is gonna have a lot harsher of a line. So you can see once we mask this out, let's say we just wanted this area, right click, go to make selection, click OK. And then on that background layer, click delete. You can see how that's a really harsh cut versus something here is a little bit softer. So you can just see the difference. If you really want the highest quality mask, go through and use the pen tool. But for the sake of the video, we're gonna go ahead and use the quick selection tool. It will take a little bit longer using the pen tool, but a lot of times it will look a lot better. So I'd recommend it if it's something you're going to try to make as good as possible. So then on the background layer, we're gonna turn off our subject real quick. We're gonna go to the lasso tool and then just kind of do a rough outline around Cardi because we want to generative fill this background. So we can click generate fill and then just click generate. And what that's gonna do is basically just fill out the background so it's all blue. That way, when we go to animate it in 3D space, there's not a Cardi behind the Cardi. So that did a pretty good job. And then I'm also going to go to the marquee tool and then make a little rectangle here. And then if you go to this rectangle where there are two filled, you can actually just make another one. So you don't have to make two separate generative fills. And then you can click generate and it's gonna fill in the left and right-hand side all in one. So that did a pretty good job. I'm going to now go through and merge all these layers. So if you click Control and click on all the layers, you can see that they're all three selected. And if we go to right click, merge layers, it will be all in one layer. And to kind of blend this a little bit more, just because the generative fill sometimes makes it like a little blurry, as you can see here, it goes from like high quality to blurry. We can go to filter, noise, add noise, and then just add a little noise over everything. It's just gonna blend it a little bit more. Using something like 5, 6%, and then monochromatic will be really helpful. And now you can see it just hid that a little bit. It's still a little blurry, but for getting the effect done, you're not gonna notice that when we add everything in the background. It's just to blend it a little bit more. And now you can see we have Cardi, and then the generative fill layer. And now this is the time where you can take different elements and add it in here. So, you know, a lot of times we associate Cardi with bats. So I think the next thing to add that would make a lot of sense is adding some bats. So on Google, I'm just gonna type in bats, PNG, go to enter. And then what we're gonna do is use that tool thing again, make sure we're at large. And then this is really crucial for getting good PNGs. And you go to color, and then instead of any color, you go to transparent. Now, all of these are gonna actually be PNGs because sometimes on Google, they like to trick you, and you go to copy and paste it and it has the checkered background. I know everyone's done that a handful of times. So you can see we can use something like this. We can copy the image, paste it in. I think 3 bats is gonna be a good spot to be at. So let's go ahead and put one in front of Cardi here, and then let's go ahead and find a few others. A lot of times, like on the related search, there's similar ones. So I'm gonna go through and see if there's some ones. This looks like a cartoon. Maybe this one could be cool. Copy and paste. Just clicking Control V to paste it, by the way. That one's not gonna look good. Sometimes you like just paste it in there and you just instantly know it's not gonna look good in your scene. So let's go ahead and find some more that fit us well. Like this one will work. Bats are scary, man. That's crazy. All right, let's do one more. This one works. And then just finding like a layout that makes sense and looks good is important. Let's see, maybe this one over here. Sometimes by like the direction of your object, sometimes it just makes sense to put some in different areas. And then it's also important to, because we're going to be going in 3D space eventually, it's good to understand where you want your images to be. Now, like right now, we're not gonna blend and add depth to everything, but I think this one, I want to be behind Cardi. So like depth, like it would be like, if I was in the room right now, it'd be like here versus like if you had it in front of the subject layer, it'd be like putting the bat here. So when you're in 3D space, it's really important to understand. So we're gonna name this bat 1, and then let's see which one's this. This one can stay in front, and we'll name this bat 2. It's also good to name all your layers because in 3D space, when we're in After Effects, it's gonna be super helpful. And then we'll name this one bat 3. And we'll put that one behind as well and maybe make it like small there. So the only one that's gonna be in front of Cardi is this one right here. And then the other 2 are gonna be behind him in space. So what we're gonna do now is blend our images to match the environment. You can see how like the bats are super warm in color temperature versus like this image. Obviously it's very dark in blue. So what we can do, I just like to be really simple and quick. You can spend a bunch of time blending and there's definitely better techniques. What I'm gonna do is create a new smart object and then go to image, adjustments. And the first thing I'm gonna do is go to hue and saturation. We're gonna click colorize, and you can see how it's already kind of changing our image to one color. Now, depending on your scene, if you have a bunch of different colors, you could skip this step, but for us, since it's all blue, we're gonna use colorize to really blend our image a lot. We can match the saturation and even the darkness a little bit. If you don't all have the exact same color, like for example, you can see how it's only blue here, really, like it's like a little bit lighter blue over here, but darker blue over here. What you can do to blend a lot better is go to color balance under image adjustments and then color balance. And you can play around with, you can see we're selected on the midtones right now. So we can go ahead and change that to fit a lot better. And we'll go through the shadows. We want the shadows to be a little darker. You can see it did make it a little bit more saturated. So because we made it a smart object, we can see our smart filters here. If you don't see it, you can click this little icon right here. And then we can just go to hue and saturation and we can bring down the saturation a little bit. You can see it won't right away. And I'm actually gonna drag that hue and saturation above color balance here. And I like the way it's a little bit more desaturated. We can also blend in After Effects a lot too. And then on this next bat, we're gonna right click and go to create smart object again. And then if you hold Alt while hovering over the smart objects and click and drag it up to the next bat, you can see how it instantly applies the effect. You might have to change the color a little bit to match, but I think that's rather good. And then we're gonna do it for the third one as well and just bring it up. Now you can see we have these bats that kind of match the scene a lot more. And we're gonna do stuff in After Effects to tweak it and make it match way better. But for right now, it's already coming together. Now, another thing I think of when I think of Playboy Cardi is like a tank. So let's go tank PNG and then find one that fits kind of what we're looking for. Again, let's do the large icon and then also transparent. And maybe this works well. You go ahead and paste that in here. I think just having it kind of like come from behind him is kind of badass, just like a tank rolling out like this. So again, we can go ahead and make our object a smart object. Maybe we're gonna put this bat over here because of that. And then I do wanna keep this tank kind of browning and green because I think that's just kind of what tanks are. But we can go up to image adjustments and then color balance and play with it a little bit so it's influenced by the environment a little bit. Like you can see how making it super red doesn't really make sense. So we can bring in some of the blues, nothing super crazy, just to match kind of what we're going for a little bit better. Another technique that you can do to blend a little bit better is make a new layer and then right click and go to create clipping mask. So now there's this new layer above it, and right now it doesn't do anything. But if we go to the brush tool and then go to soft and round, something like this, and bring the opacity down to like 30, 50%, something like that, you can select a color from the background and kind of just like paint onto the image a little bit. And that's just gonna give a little bit of like shape to the image. Now you don't have to do this, and I don't think it's absolutely necessary, but I do think it like kind of helps a little bit. And we'll go through in just a second and play with the blending modes and the opacity of this a little bit because it is a little harsh. We can even go and make another layer on top and then also create another clipping mask and maybe just make it black. And then like down here, just add more shadows to it, just to add a little bit more depth. You can see how that really does help out a lot. And then, like I said, we can play with the blending mode. So you can just cycle through them and see which one kind of like makes sense for your image. Maybe this right here. Overlay. And honestly, for the black, I don't think we really need a blending mode as well. And then we can control click on all these, right click and click merge layers. That way it just has a little bit more of like depth to it. You can see it's not absolutely perfect, but when we add other effects on in After Effects, it will blend it out a lot. And then I think like some fire would be really cool. You can also, if you have any video fire, we can also apply that in After Effects. It'd probably work out better. But since I'm using this technique of just doing it all in Photoshop, we'll go ahead and make it work, and I can show you how to animate this image to make it better. But again, just finding a fire asset, bringing it on, bringing it above everything, maybe behind Cardi, like that. And then lastly, I think something like a Cardi chain PNG would be really cool. I think this one actually might work. Let's see if we can find a higher quality version. Maybe nothing in transparent. Sometimes you have to do a little bit of masking yourself, but I think this will probably work. Let's paste that in there. I think it'd be cool to like have it hanging from the ceiling. So let's do the select subject. A lot of times this is really good. I think it did a pretty good job. We'll click Control J, delete the background. And then again, you can spend a bunch of time or kind of go through quickly how I am going to here and kind of just mask out these different areas like here, here, delete, delete. And then because it's not a PNG, I'm gonna go through and just delete each little black area here. It's gonna add a lot of depth. I wasn't going to do it, but I think it'll be worth it and make it look a lot better. It just takes a few seconds. Now this is somewhere too where like if this is like a visualizer you're doing for a client, I'd probably recommend you actually go through and use the pen tool here. You're gonna be able to get a lot more precise masks, and I can kind of show you what that looks like here. If you just go through and click, you kind of bend, play with these edges, then right click, make selection, and then delete. And you can just get a way cleaner mask because sometimes with the quick selection tool, you just can't get what you actually want to mask. But for us right now, this is fine. Something about using Photoshop like this is just like so much fun. It's like fun to like create something like 100% from scratch, because a lot of times you're just kind of like working with your video and adding stuff. But Visualizer is a lot of fun because you can kind of just go through and take images that are already online, but like merge them in a way that like no one would think to do. All right, so now we have our chain here. We go ahead and put it like maybe somewhere up here. Let's see if we can like find a good way to lay everything out, maybe a little bit better. I think that might work. Let's go through and just make sure we label everything. So this layer needs to be named Cardi, Fire, Chain, Tank, and then Background. Now this is looking pretty good. I think we can make something super fire with this. So what I'm gonna do is go up to File, Save as Copy, and name this 2D to 3D as a Photoshop file. And then inside of After Effects, go ahead and drag in that Photoshop layer into your After Effects, and then it will pop up with this image. This is really important. Make sure to click Composition, Retain Layer Styles, and then click Editable Layer Styles and click OK. Then you can see it's gonna make this composition. You can double click on that. And now all of our layers are inside of After Effects, but one by one. You can see you can toggle them on and off just like this. And then let's go ahead and make our total composition like 15 seconds long. We probably won't even use this much, but it'll just be nice to kind of have a little bit smaller of a timeline. And now I'm about to use this insanely helpful plugin that literally is the sauce for making 3D visualizers insanely easy. I'll have it linked in the description. It's called 3to5 Pro. I got you guys a $5 off discount code if you use code Brian5 at checkout. This plugin is literally a no-brainer if you make 3D visualizers or if you even use it on one project, because it's gonna save you so much time and effort. Making stuff into 3D scenes is probably my least favorite part because you have to like move all the layers and it's just complex. And this kind of like, I'll show you how easy this makes the process. So going up to File, Scripts, and then 3to5 Pro, you can go ahead and open this and then make sure to select on your background layer and then go ahead and click create 3D scene and layers. And then just like that, it's moved everything into 3D space. It's made everything 3D objects. There's a camera layer and you can see it's obviously not exactly what we want, but now we have this depth that we already like kind of intended on in Photoshop, and we can go ahead and play around with the Z position. You can see it's gonna make it closer or further. So now we're already having this really, really cool 3D scene. And let's go ahead and click expand background. And you can see that will size up our background. And then we can also, like, if you need to expand a layer, you can click that. And then let's go ahead and just go into our transform options. It's not like all 100% exactly done for you, but you can scale up these different layers and move them in different positions. So we gotta put our fire here. Maybe let's put it down a little bit, move our chain here in the front, and then maybe make our tank a little bit bigger. And I'm gonna show you how to animate this all in just a second. I just wanna make stuff in the right position so far. I think that's like an amazing kind of starting point. So let's go ahead and now go to our 3D camera layer, and we can go ahead and keyframe the position, scale, X, Y, and Z rotation. And then let's go ahead and if you press C on your keyboard or just go up to this tool right here, if you press C, you can go through all the different options, but I'm just gonna use this one right here, which is basically the depth. So let's go ahead and start where Playboy Carti's kind of at like this. And then let's go forward like 7-ish seconds so far and just kind of scale in. You can see how this is already coming together. We want to keep Carti in the center, and you can even rotate this in 3D space to like look at different things. I think I'm gonna keep it pretty straight on though, and then maybe move it up. So let's see what that looks like right here. That's looking really, really good. I didn't realize how slow it was, so we can probably zoom in even just a little bit more. That way we go completely past the chain and zoom into Carti. And then we're also gonna ease these keyframes by highlighting them and clicking F9. And then I'm also going to click N on my keyboard with it ending here. That way we can just see that we're gonna make like a 7-second visualizer. So you can see how it kind of zooms in like this. And one of the things inside of 3to5 Pro that's super, super helpful is this camera shake. So you can see as soon as we add that, we instantly have so much more motion as we're going back, and it just really ties this 3D scene together. Now, this is definitely way too intense for what I'm looking for, so I'm gonna bring down the intensity, and it's looking a lot better already. And we can maybe even bring down the frequency a little bit so it's a little slower on the way in. And then as we change down the frequency, you can see it's looking a lot better already. And now I want to go through and animate some of these layers. So the first one that's pretty easy is like we can do the tank. So let's go ahead and just keyframe everything. And then as it kind of goes here, we can go through, and if we click on the layer, we can bring it out like this. I think that would be good. And maybe just tilt it a little bit. Now, if we go back and bring it to the end and then ease those keyframes, you can now see how the tank has a little bit of motion. These things are going to help out so much when we go ahead and do all of this. Now, one thing that I think is going to be the hardest is the fire. So let's go ahead and do that actually next. So an effect that I would add on is something like turbulence displace. So then an effect like turbulence displace, dragging that on, we can go ahead and keyframe the evolution at the beginning and then all the way at the end and just drag it a few times. And let's see what these default settings look like. You can see it's not really 100% perfect. I think video footage of fire would be better here, but we can go through, maybe bring down the amount a little bit, and we can go through and maybe bring down the size a little bit and maybe the amount a little bit. And I think that would probably get us closer to what we're going for. I think that's good enough. And then adding an effect like Deep Glow on will really help sell the fire element of it. You can see how that really just like instantly transformed the effect. And then we can also add an effect like Flicker onto this layer. Sapphire Flicker, and that should help out a bunch as well. And I think that's looking pretty good for this tutorial. If I were you and you were adding fire, I'd recommend doing a video layer, but I think we got it sauced up enough where it will pass for what we're going for. The next thing I want to do is this chain. I think an effect like Deep Glow would also work really, really well on this chain. So we're gonna drag it on the chain, bring down the intensity a bunch, and also the radius. That way it's kind of just making it seem a little bit more shiny. And then dragging an effect like CC Light Sweep above this and keyframing the center amount to like up here. And then throughout as it gets like right past it, let's go ahead and keyframe it to like here. So now you can see what this is gonna do is basically do like a little light sweep here through the chain. And we might have to do that a little bit faster actually. Let's go ahead and make it a little bit more at the beginning. Maybe ease that. See what that looks like. And maybe just have it not start exactly at the beginning. So now you can see that's looking really, really sick. And then let's go ahead and do these bats next. So on the bat layer, we can go ahead up to here to the puppet position tool, and then go ahead and just add some points on our image here. So for us, we can do like one in the center, and then on the wings, you can go through and add these different keyframes. That way it kind of like bends throughout. So now when we play that, you can see this bat's kind of doing this little flying kind of animation. It's not exactly perfect, but I think it will work for what we're going for. Again, you can go through and spend as much time as you possibly want on this. But yeah, the same concept for all of these layers here for the bats. You go at the beginning. This one we'll have to animate a little bit more just because it's in focus for longer. So we can go through, bring up the wings like that, and just make sure we do it all the way to the end here. So now we have this bat that's kind of flapping in the wind back here. And you can see how this is just bringing everything to life like insanely. And then let's go ahead and do that first bat over here and go here, flap down, flap up, and then like this. So now all the bats are kind of doing stuff at the same time. And I think that's looking a lot better. I think one thing we can also do is just like, you can go through and do this to all the layers. Like for example, the chain would look really good with this. So we can go through and add a handful of these points. And if you do the puppet on like something with like that has effects, just make sure to bring it to the top. Otherwise it might have this weird outline like it does here. So just dragging that to the top will fix that. And then we can go, you know, a little bit through. Maybe just move the chain a little bit. I think it just makes it feel like it's hanging from something, which is kind of like what I was going for with the effect. And I think the last thing I just want to do that for is the tank itself, just on this, like, whatever you call this part. And then just go through and kind of like, you don't want to like bend it because that's going to look weird, but let's see. Maybe I won't be able to pull this off as much as I thought I would. I just want it to kind of look like it's like aiming at something. Let's see if that works. Hopefully that works. I think it works enough. And then one of the next things I'm gonna do is just add depth to a lot of the things. So an effect like camera lens blur is gonna be so helpful here. So let's go ahead, and one of the first things that's gonna be like kind of out of focus is this tank in my eyes. So let's go ahead and add a little bit of camera lens blur here on the tank, maybe like 3 or 4. And then you just wanna like kind of pay attention. So like, I think like halfway through, it kind of like go into focus a little bit. And I think towards the end, as we get like really close to Cardi, I want everything to go out of focus. So we can bring up that again. You don't want to go too crazy, but I think just having it focus on Cardi will be huge. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. You can see it's out of focus. It kind of goes into focus and then back out of focus. And then I think the fire would be something like in focus at the beginning. And then as it just gets closer to Cardi, we just go like more and more out of focus. And then the chain, I think like at the beginning, probably in focus. And then by like here, it's probably like out of focus. So let's go ahead and keyframe the blur radius, maybe like 1 at the beginning. And then like by the time it gets here, like go up to like 10, maybe like 7. It's all about like just tweaking and finding the numbers that work for you. And then I think the obvious ones are the bats. So this bat is the only bat that's like in front of Cardi. So let's go ahead and drag that one on first. I think it'd be like a little out of focus at first. maybe a little bit more. Now, I'm not the best at like knowing when stuff is supposed to go in and out of focus, but if you like try to think about it more logically, like the things that are further to the side will be more out of focus, and then the things that are more in the center will be like remain in focus more throughout the time. So like Cardi's probably not gonna like really have much blur on him at all, if any, just because he's like the thing we're looking at, versus like if you were to take your hand and put it here, like you can see your hand, but it's not in focus versus like when you're looking at the screen. So it's like kind of just a little bit of that like logic as you're going through and making this. And you're not gonna do it perfectly, but I think if you just get kind of close to what it would be, you can really have like some good results. So we're gonna go through and I'm just gonna copy and paste this onto this last bat. I think it'd be very, very similar depth, this bat over here. And if you think like that's kind of the case, you can also just go through and like change the values just the littlest bit. So I can, instead of 13, let's like do like 7. So maybe it's a little bit more in focus than the other one. And then also maybe even the background itself kind of goes out of focus. So let's go here, camera blur, 0, towards the end. Now this is where my computer really starts to lag. So all these little things that I'm doing now just like take significantly longer. But what I'm gonna do on top of all this is make a new adjustment layer and then go ahead and add an effect like heat wave. This is gonna really, really add some sauce to everything. It's gonna make it just so much more like depth to it. And I'm also gonna add something like add grain on top of this, and then go to final output, go to one of these presets, make it monochromatic, and then also add RSMB, but drag that above everything. And then if you really, really want to go crazy, you can add something like Dehancer Pro on all of this, and you can go ahead and play with all of these film options. I'll also have this link down below. I think I have a discount code to save you guys some money. I use this literally all the time. It's like really some sauce to like blending stuff. One of the things I like is we can actually probably remove this add grain because I'm going to use their grain that's inside of here, because their grain is crazy. And then I'm also gonna add some like halations on here. You can see what that kind of does. It adds like that pink glow. And then also some bloom will look crazy. And then also some bloom will look crazy. Just adding some glow. And then lastly, just adding some curves inside of Lumetri color. And then I'm also gonna open up Grungy 93 from my Grungy 93 pack. I'll have that link down below as well. It's just a good way to kind of add a little bit of color grade to it. I think it's gonna like really sauce it up. So you can see in the last step, we added a lot. Like it went from like this image right here to like a super blended 3D visualizer. All these effects like aren't necessary, but I do think they really do help. And they're also gonna slow down your computer a bunch. So keep that in mind, but that's really where you get a lot of the sauce here, is just at the end. We can even add some vignetting. And it's not even, I'm not even gonna try to render preview this. I'm just gonna add it and render it out. And then when you put all of those steps together, you come up with this amazing 3D visualizer. I'll have all the stuff I used linked down below. If you made it all the way to the end, I really do appreciate you. If you guys haven't already snagged that 3dify Pro plugin, I'd highly suggest it. It's made by a smaller creator here on YouTube. I think it's insanely useful. And if you wanna create amazing visualizers like this, it's just an absolute no-brainer. I'll have that link down below, as well as all the discount codes. That way you guys can create visualizers just like this. If you haven't already, drop a like on the video. And if you're not subscribed, be sure to do that because I upload videos like this all the time. But that's all I got for you guys in this one. Peace.